Mr. MVP, sir, how are you doing?
Not too bad. How's it going?
Yeah, going good, man. Going good. Can't complain. We're about to the weekend here. It's Friday, so that's always fun. Yeah, man. Yeah, man. And it's funny. We were mentioning, we were calling you Michael here before you got on, and it's. I think of you as only like MVP, and I never. It's weird for me to think of calling you Michael. Like, how many people actually call you by your actual name?
Varies, man. I get all kinds of mix up. I always tell everyone I answer to all of them, so it doesn't really matter. Some people call me MVP, Michael, Venom, Page, random.
Well, that's the funny thing is you're one of the rare fighters who have two nicknames and one that kind of springboards off of the other. So it's kind of a cool little dynamic you've established, man. For sure, for sure. And it's been a while since we've seen you in action, MVP. So it's very exciting getting to see you back here. So just what have you been up to since the match with Perry?
To be fair, just waiting to get back in. Obviously, just training. A few other projects going on, but just more so the training. Just kind of staying fit. Then obviously had the opportunity to do the bare knuckle while I was kind of waiting in the wings. Did that, and then yeah, again just waiting to kind of be confirmed, and here we are.
Absolutely. And I'm curious, like, what was it like? I know you've talked about the fight plenty already, but I want to ask you about like training for a bare knuckle match. Like, how do you? That's something that's always fascinating to me. Is like, how do you do that? You're not like obviously sparring people without gloves on or anything because you save that for the fight. But how kind of different, I guess, was it from what you normally do with MMA? Obviously, you don't do the kicks and everything, but how was it training for a bare knuckle match? Pretty much.
Yeah, just obviously we did some extra like conditioning work for knuckles. Obviously we're used to having the gloves on. We did do sparring, but in like normal training MMA gloves. Obviously, you can't double guard and stuff. It's not that I do anyway, but we just had to get used to that. And then it was a lot of say Greco wrestling and clinch work, just because they kind of let the what we call dirty boxing go in the bare knuckle. So it was more, a few added variations, but other than that, just the same. The pace is a lot more intense. It's because it's a shorter round. It's all go immediately. Whereas you got the 5 minute rounds, people can tend to take their time a little bit more and work things out. Whereas with the 2 minutes, people are they're just trying to win a round. It's very fast paced.
Yeah, that's interesting, man. Definitely a change up in a lot of different elements that people obviously just think of like the lack of gloves, but there's a lot more to it, as you just mentioned, right?
There's loads to it, and it's again I think similar to kind of like the MMA when it first jumped on the scene. People kind of see the brutality of it and not the actual the technical aspect of it. And I guess it's just this is another phase or another sport that's going through that phase. But yeah, no, there's a lot of technical work to do, and obviously you got to change up how you do your fitness.
Yeah, no doubt, man. So very cool. And I know you want to do another one at some point, so that'll be exciting to see it. But speaking of the last one, and Perry specifically, I'm sure you saw the news. He's fighting Luke Rockhold next. I mean, kind of crazy that that's happening. I mean, what was your reaction to that, man?
Yeah, I got respect for Perry. He just comes to fight. And it seems like he doesn't really care who. Um, because Rockhold's a big guy, and Perry was never really like the biggest welterweight. So yeah, it's a difficult one, but I think he's just accustomed to the bare knuckle now. He's done it enough. He understands how it works. It will be difficult for Luke Rockhold, especially being the more taller fighter in such a small space. When you've got someone ducking their head, that's happy to take punches, to give punches. Yeah, so I think it still favors him, but the size difference is going to be apparent.
Yeah, that is a very, very interesting matchup, but many different ways that that one can play out. So it'll be interesting to see. But before then, MVP, obviously, we get to watch you fight, which is next week. Goiti Yamauchi, very fun matchup, very interesting stylistic clash. You know, he's known for his jiu-jitsu, one of the best in Bellator history, honestly, and he's starting to add the hands in there, as we saw against Neiman. He's, you know, sharpening up his striking technique. Going to be hard to catch up with you, though, of course. But what are kind of your expectations from him in this one? You think he'll try and continue this momentum with his striking, or he'll try and be a little desperate, try and take you down like a lot of people try to do against you, and what he's historically done? Just kind of what kind of Goiti do you think you're going to get here?
Yeah, no, his last fight is not really a representation of him, in my opinion, simply because they're both high-level jiu-jitsu, you know, fighters, and a lot of the times you get, you know, you might get two wrestlers or you might get two jiu-jitsu guys, as we saw, and they opt out of going into that space.
Cancels out. Yeah.
They're like, you know what, if we want to figure out who's a better jiu-jitsu guy, we'll just go and do a jiu-jitsu competition. Instead of even trying to figure that out, because, you know, we're equal in this kind of space, or potentially equal in that kind of space, let's just throw hands and see who's got the better hands. And a lot of the times, you know, getting whoever's got the better striking will definitely win the fight. But then also it makes it easier to then get your jiu-jitsu, or to get your submission anyway, because you got someone that's a bit rocked or a bit dazed from some of the shots that they've taken. They're not going to be thinking as clearly when they're doing the jiu-jitsu. So yeah, I don't take that as the type of person I'm going to see next week. I think he's going to stick to his game, because that's what he's best at. He's going to try his best to figure out a way to kind of get to me and pull me down into his world. And yeah, that's pretty much going to be it.
In terms of danger, then overall, with what kind of weapons he does possess, where would you rank him amongst all the opponents you have fought?
He's obviously extremely dangerous, but just in a specific area. Mm-hmm. You know, again, everybody has the potential to throw a punch or a kick and hit somebody, regardless of the skill level. You know, normally the more skillful striker would obviously be the person hitting more, but you know, everyone's got a puncher's chance, as they say. But yeah, he's extremely skillful in his area. It's like me going into a fight and just because my last fight I managed to submit someone, everyone's like, oh, maybe he's gonna do that. No, that's area of expertise, and I don't claim for it to be. I love doing it. And like I said, if I want to do more of it, I'll just be in a jiu-jitsu competition. But yeah, I enjoy my striking. That's my bread and butter, and that's where I'm gonna, spend my time. And I think the same thing goes for him.
Yeah, no secrets. We kind of know what to expect, right?
We start on our feet, so he's gonna have to figure out defensively or figure out certain strikes that he's going to want to try to land as well, because again, it still helps him. But even like I said, if I can turn a KO artist in Paul Daly into a wrestler, then it's very unlikely that a jiu-jitsu guy is going to try to strike with me.
Yeah, excellent point. A lot of people forget that you did that to him, so that's a great comparison, I think. But it's interesting too, MVP, like at this point in your career, you're kind of, I think it's safe to say, consistently stuck around the top of the division, right where you want to be. So that's a good place. But I'm curious for you, like Goiti obviously making his run or his attempt here in the welterweight division now. So like, where do you think a win over you puts him? Like, how close to getting back to a title fight would you say it would get you?
For me, yeah, it's pretty much there, because in all honesty, I believe Jackson's next in line. And the only reason I kind of know that is because that was potentially one of the fights that was supposed to happen. There had to have been some kind of conversation in the back, because he was like he'd prefer to wait for the title fight, which makes sense. If you are, if you've been told that you're next in line, why risk another fight where you could potentially lose and get knocked back? So yeah, no, for me that kind of made sense. So I think it's going to be him, and whoever the winner of him and Amosov would be. I get my chance to get that title again.
Absolutely, man. And I know it's one of those things that's kind of followed you a little bit throughout your career. And I know you've heard, the negative fan comments or whatever about people saying MVP has gotten special treatment his whole career. And I feel like at this point, you can't say that anymore at all. So I'm curious for you, like, do you think you've kind of shut up people now and shown that obviously you've fought plenty of great guys at this point, but do you still get that? Or is it like, all right, people finally see MVP is fighting some of the best guys, you're top ranked, like this stigma's gone now?
You know what? I think what it is, people like to jump on bandwagon. So once something's been said and there's something that keeps kind of coming up, people will jump on that. And it's usually a lot of uneducated people in the sport. They watch the sport, but only the key players, shall I say. I still get a lot of fans going, "Oh, you do UFC, don't you?" It's the it's I think it's a lot of lack of education, which makes it easier to then jump on whatever bandwagon is I'm being represented as. And to be fair, it doesn't really bother me. I don't really care. I've enjoyed my journey this far. I'm still enjoying my journey as I'm going along. And I just love combat, which is why I do so much random stuff, boxing, bare knuckle. I'll try it all. So yeah, I'm just living my best life.
Yeah, man, and what a journey it has been. Like I didn't realize until kind of looking over your record just to refresh things and look at all, the fights you've had, but you had a stretch at one point, I believe maybe around 16ish, but had a stretch of 4 fights in Dublin, London, Saitama, Paris. Like all these very cool extravagant places.
Yeah. And it was after losing to Lima, I was active, like I was adamant that I wanted to get that back. And every time I want to fight, I'd call him out. And, it's like, no, you got to do another fight. I'm like, I want another fight immediately. And it just kept going until, obviously I finally got that fight. I managed to get it back, get the win up and get the win back.
Yeah, and I mean, in terms of the locations, though, like you also fought in India back in the day, man. Like, do you have a favorite career experience, like overall, including obviously maybe the fight result, but just going to these crazy, cool, unique cities and whatnot that you've been to?
I have to say, Japan really is a weird experience, like in an amazing way, just because the city itself I really connected with more so. I just think the people are so respectful over there. As fans, they're amazing. They really do support. Like going into a stadium when the first fight goes on. Sorry, before the first fight goes on, the stadium's packed. It's like 32,000 people, and everyone's in seats waiting. Unique in the sense that it's that many people and it's silent until something happens, and then they like clap and applaud, and then go back to being silent. It's almost like being at a tennis game. But at the same time, there's still a weird air about it, that there's a lot of combat has been taking place in the arena, and you can even when we went in earlier before everyone started to come in, and immediately as you got in there, there's just a weird air. Like, man, I can't wait to fight in this place. Yeah, so I think I'm an anime geek as well, so I was going around the city doing all of that kind of stuff. Yeah, I really resonate with Japan. So I think that's been one of my favorite locations. In terms of like a crowd, Dublin is hard to beat. To be fair, even the other day they were loud and it was quieter than it normally is. And I actually think it's more so because they didn't have a Irish main event. It wasn't as spectacular as when I fought there. Yeah, because that place is unbelievably loud. And again, a great city. People are so nice, friendly. Everybody's a comedian. Like your taxi driver. Like it's a great place to be. To be fair, but yeah, like loads of places I'm happy with. I think they're probably my top two.
Yeah, totally understandable, man. I mean, I think it's really cool how Bellator has really centered in on, getting the Dublin shows out there, and then, also the connection with Japan now and Ryzen and whatnot. And then, yeah, for you, like in Saitama and whatnot, it's just, you can kind of feel the history, right? Like that's probably what it is. There's just, that all this stuff has happened in this place and the energy is like permeated there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. It literally is that. It's weird. And even, like not even like kind of remembering everybody that's taken fought there. Just yeah, exactly that. It's just the air in there. As soon as you walk in, it's almost like a warrior's temple, and you can just feel where every strike has being hit and landing every KO, every submission. It's just everything hits you at the same time, and it was epic.
No doubt, man. Very unique place indeed. One of the best in MMA history. So it's funny, MVP, like all these, experiences that you have had and all this, and, still a pretty young guy, I would say, and still, got a lot that you want to do, of course, between MMA and bare knuckle and whatever other possibilities you can have. But it has been a pretty long journey at this point. So I'm sure you're not looking at the end, but do you have like a timeline in your head maybe of like how much longer you want to keep fighting for?
No, I'm setting up a lot of things. I'll put it this way: I know when I decide to make that decision, like, okay, I'm happy to call it quits here. It's it's going to be a decision where I've got other things going on that I've been setting up. Because I don't want to be one of those fighters that ends up having to get dragged back fighting, I don't know, through financial stresses or just, missing that kind of energy, end up getting knocked about by somebody you shouldn't really get knocked about by. So I don't want to be one of those people. So I know once I call it quits, it's definitely me out. But also for me, it's more a case of like the fighting is not the hardest bit. It's making it to the fight. When my body says to me, I'm not capable of training at the level and the intensity that I would normally train at to be comfortable in a fight, that's one of the reasons I have to call it quits. If any of the young bucks in the gym is having me up, that's another reason for me to call it quits. And right now, those things aren't happening. So I'm gonna keep riding the train until either I'm happy. I personally just want to kind of like call it a day, or like I said, my body catches up on me.
Yeah, there we go, man. I don't need to think about it now, but it's just like when people get to that certain point, I feel like we can think about it a little bit, at least from a fan perspective. Like we don't want MVP to go away, but is he getting close? So I had to check with you, sir. But glad to know we're not there yet. So awesome stuff, MVP. Well, I will leave you with some random questions here before I let you go, man. Been great. Thank you so much, or at least more obscure, I guess. But obviously one of the best strikers in the welterweight division, just in MMA period. So for you, man, do you have a favorite striking technique specifically? Something that you just love getting off and hitting people with?
Favorite one is difficult. I always come up with some weird ass moves, but most I say most common is we call it a flyby. A few boxers do it, like Mayweather does it. Weird enough, even like Conor McGregor posted a video probably a couple of years back now, but he did the flyby as well. It's a very long range technique, very unorthodox. It's something that I've lived by for a long time, and I've gotten quite a few KOs from just that.
Absolutely, man. And who do you think is the best striker of all time?
Definitely this guy called MVP.
All right. I wasn't sure if you'd go that route or not, but all right. Fair enough, man. And all right, here's one I've been dying to ask you about. You spoke about the anime nerd fandom earlier, but favorite Pokemon, man, who is it?
Oh, man.
I know there's almost 1,000 now.
Yeah, I'm more based on the originals. And okay, everybody. I think when when it first came out, it was on the Game Boy and stuff. The main person that I think everybody was chasing for was Mewtwo, simply because how powerful he was. But I took a weird liking to Snorlax. I loved his energy of just not really giving a damn. Like I'll just go sleep here. Kind of liked his energy. And then lastly, I think he's a common favorite for a lot of people, just because of his angry attitude. Kind of reminds me of a Vegeta in Pokemon form. Is Charizard.
Okay, I thought you were going to say Gengar for a second.
Charizard. That's more like spooky stuff, but no, Charizard.
Yeah, man, for sure. And Snorlax, I mean, he had the most health. He was like very hard to take down, so it's almost annoying to go against him.
Pick back up. You're like, oh my god, how am I gonna beat this thing?
Yeah, man, for sure. So I'm assuming then Gen 1, Gen 2 is kind of the favorite games for you.
Yeah, definitely. Like Pokemon Red and Blue. Like, yeah, I lived by that. And don't get me wrong, it's my nephews and stuff now. They're getting into Pokemon, and they're kind of into the newer Pokemon. I don't care as much, And I kind of like learn more from them that like what who the new guys are. But yeah, the originals for me is always the best. And actually, Alakazam's another one I used to love.
Yeah, yeah, he was definitely a very good one too, one of the better psychics. So, have you played? What's the most recent game you've played then?
By way of like Pokemon or in general.
Let's do both.
So Pokemon is probably Pokemon Go, to be fair.
Okay.
And I was contemplating going back and trying it again because I heard you can do like battles and stuff. And
Yeah.
I used to be doing. I don't want to get distracted, and I usually get into it. But at the moment, Call of Duty is probably the most common thing that I play.
All right, fair enough, man. Yeah, solid one there. So, all right, MVP. Last thing I will leave you with, man. Good stuff. If you never got into MMA, what do you think you'd be doing instead as a career?
Again, it's a question I've had, and the only thing I can really say is I'll be in some kind of sport. And it's only because I've always used my body. I've been into cricket, done really well at cricket. I've been into tennis, football, or soccer, should I say. I even done American football a little bit. Played rugby, skiing, and again, every single time I do these sports, I really get quite far. Like, I pick things up very, very well. Basketball played, swimming did, but the only thing that I kind of stuck to, and I think it's because it was like a family thing, was the martial arts. So, but if you took that away, it'd be some kind of sport. Maybe soccer, I'd say. I probably would have fallen into.
All right, there we go. Super athlete, man. Could do it all. So, but landed on MMA, and we're not complaining about that. It's been a good run. So, and keeps on going, MVP. So, I wish you the best of luck with the fight coming up next week. I'll be there, so I'll see you there. Watch live in person. Going to be a good time. Kicking off the Lightweight Grand Prix too. So, just an overall great time to be in Bellator and watching and whatnot. So, safe travels to get there, sir. And best of luck with everything. Thank you so much for the time, man. See you next week.
Yeah, man. See you next week.